walk into the gym, personal trainer, my weight has plateaued. What am I supposed to do? Personal trainer says, oh, it's no problem at all. Just go ahead and reduce your calories by another 100, and then we'll possibly add in some cardio. You say, okay, personal trainer, you know better than me. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So as you guys can see, today's the day after we're putting up another video. So I'm gonna go ahead and erase what we talked about yesterday, start over, and this is basically going to be like a part 2. I'm probably gonna make like a video series about all of these topics because I think that the first video was absorbed and taken very, very well. So I wanna go ahead and continue to expand on the success of yesterday's video. So if you haven't had a chance to go and check out yesterday's video, please go ahead and do that. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and erase this. So we went ahead and erased that, and today is the second edition of this video series where we're going to talk about the roles of leptin and how you can actually carb cycle to be able to mitigate some of the negative adaptations, like I mentioned yesterday, mitigate some of those negative adaptations from actually happening, since glucose can actually regulate our ability to have high leptin and our ability to regulate our thermodynamics, or our body's ability to burn or suppress our caloric expenditure. All right, guys, so how are we supposed to regulate leptin? I'm talking about this hormone called leptin, but it's like, all right, well, we have to keep leptin elevated if we want to continuously burn body fat. So how do we do that? Glucose essentially controls our ability to have high leptin levels, okay? So leptin is basically like your body's defense mechanism. If glucose is low, or calories in general are low, that basically sends a signal to your brain telling your body, telling your metabolism to conserve energy. So what is one way that we can go about maintaining optimized leptin levels? That's going to be with carbohydrate cycling during the fat loss phase. Carbohydrate cycling, something that I'm sure all of you have heard about. You've probably all heard of carb cycling. So how exactly do we do that? What does it mean? And what are some of the modalities that we utilize in the online nutrition coaching space? Well, there's a lot of different methods that I've used and seen a lot of different successes with them. However, in general terms, what I can tell you about carb cycling is that like a wave would go up and a wave would come down. That's essentially the same way that your carbohydrates are rolling. So it's basically a peak and a valley, a peak and a valley, a peak and a valley, a peak and a valley. And over the course of time, you are raising your calories and you're also having these lows. Okay, so these lows essentially would be your caloric deficit, and these highs would essentially be your kind of caloric surplus or energy balance. So we'll call this energy balance. All right, so here we are offsetting the negative adaptations, and here we are pushing for fat loss. And again, because every fat loss push into a caloric deficit will require a recovery phase. Every push requires recovery. Every push requires recovery. What are some of the implementations of carb cycling that I've used and saw a lot of success with? Well, here they go. I'll first start off by saying that adherence matters a ton, especially in individuals who may have a lot of adipose tissue to lose. You don't necessarily have to start them off with a carb cycle, kind of until you may sense that some negative adaptations are occurring. The thing is that with clients who have a lot of weight to lose, you're putting them into a calorie deficit, but because they have so much adipose tissue to lose or so much stored energy, it's less likely they're going to adapt faster. So typically with overweight individuals, you can typically go, like I'd say 10 to 14 days before you maybe give them, 3 to 7 days at maintenance. Okay. Now with a more leaner athletic population, you could probably get away with maybe like for every 6 days in a deficit, maybe you give them 1 to 2 days at maintenance. Okay. Now for leaner individuals, we're talking, you probably will start to see some negative adaptations after 4 days. In which case you probably want to provide them, 2 to 3 days at maintenance. Now, what I'll say in regards to this being kind of more of an overweight, this being kind of athletic, now, and this being lean, now keep in mind that there are kind of subcategories within these, but these are kind of the main carb cycles that I've utilized and saw a lot of success in working with our clients at Metabolic Evolution. The leaner you are, the more you need to not diet, okay? The leaner you are, the less you need to diet, because when you go on these little 3 to 4 day fat loss pushes, it's going to yield the negative adaptations probably after like 3 to 4 days. And this is why you also, in theory, need to be able to recover from anywhere from 48 to 72 hours. Okay. Now, if you're I'd say probably like 10 to probably 16 to 17%, I'd call that probably athletic. You could probably get away with a very normal carb cycle or something around the neighborhood of like 1 high day a week, possibly 2 high days a week. But again, it just depends on what the client can adhere to. I will say that based off of the research that we have in regards to the effects of hormones and calories and how those two kind of blend together, I will say that longer durations eating at caloric maintenance, okay, will have a more positive impact on the negative adaptations. So if I was to create a perfect, it'd probably be like 5 days in a deficit and maybe 2 days at maintenance. Now, I have seen a lot of success with that one as well, but I've tried all of them. And these are the ones that I've noticed the best results with. I'm currently working with a client who's down about 106 pounds right now. And I'm gonna talk to you guys all about that entire transformation in videos to come. But I wanna keep you guys up, kind of get you guys on this channel up to par with some of the things that I do within my business to help our clients get the results that they want. So that 100+ pound weight loss video, it's coming, but I wanna explain all of this to you guys first. All right, so in regards to carbohydrate cycling, what do we know? What do we know about the role of glucose? What we know about it is that research shows, okay, that roughly after 72 hours of eating at theoretical maintenance level, the negative adaptations we talked about in the first video, okay, those start to be reversed, all right? So if I was working with say an overweight client, I would most likely try to have them at least 3 days, sometimes even a week or more at maintenance. For every week to 2 weeks, I have them in a caloric deficit, all right? So we know that 72 hours starts to reverse those adaptations. So in a practical application setting, if you are somebody who is metabolically adapted already, I would probably highly recommend you take at least, if you are somebody who's eating between 1,000 1,300 calories per day, okay, doing X amount of cardio. I have no idea because this is so variable. I don't want to dig too deep into that. But if you are somebody who is doing this and 0 is happening, okay, I would likely recommend specifically just for you to take your calories probably up to 1,400 to 1,700, okay, times 7 days. And essentially what would happen is that you would, and whatever cardio you're doing, we would reduce that by 50%, okay? Now, whatever cardio you're doing, cut that in half. Follow this for 7 days, and in most cases, this will help you kind of reignite your metabolic furnace. That signal is going to go from your brain to your thyroid, telling your thyroid, hey, it's okay to burn more calories now. And then the hormones that basically make up the power of the thyroid, T3 and T4, will then become upregulated, and then that will increase your ability to produce more heat in your body, helping you burn more calories or improve your basal metabolic rate or your resting metabolic rate. When do you actually need to implement a carb cycle? Now, somebody made a great comment on one of my videos earlier, and they were like, do you always have to implement a carb cycle? Or, you know, can you get by with just eating the same amount of calories to help kind of stay away or just lose as much as I can until these dreaded adaptations actually start to occur? That's a phenomenal question, because I think that the understanding that you should implement it before the adaptations occur, I think that's the take-home point. So I want to create a visual for you guys and kind of walk you through it. Now, if your basal metabolic rate is set initially at like 1,800 calories, we are going to implement a caloric deficit, okay? So we are going to drop in a caloric deficit of, let's just say, 1,500 calories, okay? So so your basal metabolic rate is here. Now the calories we're going to start you off at are here, okay? Now, as you implement these calories, oh, gotta use green. As you implement these calories will stay the same, but what happens is that your BMR will start to catch up to those calories. So they eventually will meet. They'll meet somewhere in here, okay? Now when they meet, you're plateaued. Doesn't matter if we're in a caloric deficit, 4, 5, 6 weeks in, however long it is, now you have plateaued because your maintenance level is now 1,500 calories. That's what adaptation looks like. So what we would do is basically, majority of people will say, all right, I have stopped losing on 1,500 calories, walk into the gym, personal trainer, my weight has plateaued. What am I supposed to do? Personal trainer says, oh, it's no problem at all. Just go ahead and reduce your calories by another 100. And then we'll possibly add in some cardio. You say, okay, personal trainer, you know better than me. So what do? We take this caloric deficit and we drop you down to 1,400 calories, which in theory is actually probably a pretty good move if we didn't know about carb cycling. So then calories come down, right? Calories come down. Okay, now metabolic rate is still here, okay? So now we've created a gap again. So now we have the ability to burn more fat. However, your metabolism is smarter than you and it will adapt. And then over the course of time, that blue line starts creeping back up on that green. Blue or green. And then again, we have reached energy homeostasis. You make another drop. Say you go down to 1,300 calories. Okay? Implement that. And you start riding that wave. Now again, you've created a deficit again. So this is good, like you're actually losing fat. You've created another deficit. But, you guys know, look at the graph. We're gonna come right down, and in time, those blues and those greens are gonna meet again, and now you're plateaued. In time, what's gonna happen is that you're down to 1,000 calories, doing X amount of cardio, and those blue and those green lines are just riding together because your metabolism, while it could have been very healthy when you started, has now been compromised because your body is smarter than you and it will always adapt. So instead of waiting, I urge you to have a plan of action before you actually start the diet. So let's go ahead and erase this, and then I'm going to show you what a better idea would be. All right, here's my graph, and we're gonna go in on what a carb cycle would look like and what it would essentially do for your metabolism, all right? So we have 1,800 calorie basal metabolic rate. We implement 1,500 calories because it's gonna help this client get into a caloric deficit. Now, what I will do here is we'll call each one of these lines like a week, all right? I don't really know how this is going to work out, but we're gonna roll with it. And over the course of 8 weeks, we'll probably be able to create this nice kind of cyclical wave that you're going to be able to see, and you're going to be like, oh, okay, I understand it now. So basically, we have basal metabolic rate, and your calories our 1800 maintenance. So then, therefore, we go ahead and place this client into a caloric deficit. Okay. So we have them in a caloric deficit, and because we have this gap, okay, at the end of week 1, right, we know that the client's losing. We have a gap there. We have an energy deficit established. We know she's losing. But we also know that based off of what I told you in yesterday's video, leptin can be compromised by as much as 50% in the first week, right? So even if in a perfect scenario, I mean, this client could lose, like, let's just say 2 pounds. And that would be amazing. Like, wow, they lost 2 pounds. This is phenomenal. Let's go ahead and do it again. Another week, they'll lose 2 more pounds. That'd be amazing. But I would say, whoa, back up, hold your horses, and let's actually further analyze this. So because we know that your basal metabolic rate is going to adapt because it's trying to close this energy gap, we would then implement calories. I'm going to back up. Oh no, I got to use green. We would then implement calories back up to what your maintenance level is, which would be 1800 calories, okay, for maybe like a couple days, all right? And then we're going to create an energy deficit again. We're going to ride that out, okay? Now look what happens to your metabolism, okay? While in this first week it might like come down just a little bit, it can stimulate again and it can stay elevated, preserving that energy gap. It can preserve the gap. That's why carb cycling works so well, right? Because you can preserve the gap. So then, let's say, for instance, we go high carb for 48 to 72 hours. We see a positive outcome in metabolic rate. We're like, oh, we're fired back up. We have more energy in the gym. We're sweating more. We are hotter. Maybe your bowels actually start to kind of improve. Maybe after that first week, maybe your bowels slow down a little bit. Now they're regulated again. Now you're going normally again. Again, basal metabolic rate will, over time, kind of start to trickle down. And then once it starts to trickle down, we hit it with more calories. Extend that out. Go back into a calorie deficit. And again, let's say, for instance, this is like 3 days. Okay? So let's say we are implementing a 7 days at a caloric deficit, 3 days at maintenance, 7 days calorie deficit, 3 days at maintenance, okay? So because we know that in theory, a 7-day caloric deficit could compromise leptin by 50%, and we know that a 72-hour refeed or 72 hours at maintenance level can help offset those negative adaptations that occur during the 7-day fat loss, it would, in theory, like make sense that we could implement a, oh, that's green, this is blue. We could implement a 7-day calorie deficit followed by a 3-day caloric maintenance period. Now, if we continue to do this over time, so we have calories kind of being, so if we continue to do this over time, we have calories kind of going in a cyclical fashion, just like this. Now, granted, yes, you can notice that I'm kind of starting to go down, right? Because even if you do this, your metabolism can still be compromised, but at a much less degree than it would be if we just dove into a straight deficit. So this is what we're looking at. 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. What we're looking at here, 3, 3, 3, 3. Now again, you can see that we're kind of trending downward and metabolic rate will eventually go down, but look at how much more progress we can make and keep metabolic rate higher, whereas, now I'm going to draw something else that's going to make you guys really kind of understand this. We're going to use the previous graph that I drew. We're going to take that understanding and use this as an example. Your metabolic rate would basically go like this. Okay, so if you look at this at the end of this 8-week fat loss phase, your metabolic rate, if you utilize a consistent, a chronic caloric deficit, you probably end up somewhere around here. However, if you utilize a carb cycling approach, you'd probably end up somewhere kind of around here. So I don't know about you guys, but that top blue dot looks a lot better to me than that bottom pink dot. And again, I would urge you to consider a carbohydrate strategy when you're implementing a fat loss approach, no matter what stage of your fat loss diet you're in, because your goal is to preserve the health of your metabolic rate throughout any fat loss diet. Thanks so much for checking out this video. Oh yeah, and one more thing I forgot to mention, I do have an infographic on this, which I will be posting in this video if I haven't already. And I also have a post on my Instagram about this, which I will also be putting in this video. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Much love, guys. Coach Will. See you in part 3.